Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time talking episode 2 of Supergirl called Stronger Together. And this episode is, I have to say, a noticeable uptick in quality. Now it does have the advantage of it's not the pilot episode, so a lot of the preliminaries, shall we say, have gotten out of the way. Also, one of the advantages that second episodes have is, especially on shows that don't go directly to season, like they'll make the pilot, then we'll sort of bounce it off the network, see how it does, and then kind of go back and tinker with it some more, like what they did with Supergirl. The pilot episode, for example, leaked online some time back. Is that they'll have that time to sit down and really say, okay, what worked and what didn't, and then they can kind of make some changes, fix some things, and that also kind of allows for a little more time for the writers to sort of figure out what they want to do with everybody and whatnot. And as I said, because of all of that, there's definitely a big uptick in the quality of this episode. The show, I think, is still looking for that right balance, but I mean, this was a fun hour of television. So let's just kind of get right into things and just briefly address the characters. Now, Helgramite is a character from the comics, but he's not one that I know particularly well. I just know that in the comics he's a much more freaky looking bug man. Here, well, they're doing what they can on a TV budget, and it's kind of hoping that it would be a little bit better. I mean, I was just watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. a little while ago, and Lash on that show looks really cool. Here, Helgramite is basically kind of a dude in a blue jumpsuit, and then we get one or two shots of him doing freaky stuff. And it's like, come on, man, really? You guys can do better than this. I mean, you're frickin' CBS, okay? You've been broadcasting TV shows longer than I've been alive. In fact, I'm pretty sure CBS has been around longer than my parents have been alive. So, yeah. Helgramite, definitely disappointing. Kind of going on and just sort of go through everybody. Nothing huge to say about Wynn this episode. Just a sort of indignation and annoyance that Cara, I'm going to try and say her name right, had also revealed her secret to Jimmy Olsen. Well, okay, she didn't reveal the secret to it. He came into town knowing the situation, but Wynn doesn't know that. And just sort of seeing them sort of obviously a little at odds with each other. I mean, that's nice stuff. It's cute. I mean, just kind of looking forward to when we can sort of see a little bit more Wynn as a character beyond nerdy dude who likes Kara, but she sees as just a friend. I mean, I've kind of seen some people calling him like Captain Friend Zone or something like that. It's just like, come on. I really don't think that's quite fair. I mean, he was trying to ask her out in the first episode, so of course, the term friend zone is an extraordinarily loaded one in this day and age, and not for entirely unjustifiable reasons, but let's not get into that. Anywho, so this episode, since I just mentioned him a minute ago, let's talk about Jimmy here. I'm just going to call him Jimmy just out of habit. I know he goes by James on this episode and on the show, but to us, he shall always be Jimmy Olsen, Superman's pal. I did get a kick out of Cat Grant dropping that one, and we also got another Up and Away, and This Is a Job for Supergirl. So some nice nods to the Superman mythology. But Jimmy's situation this episode again brings up the question: why the hell does anybody want to work for Cat Grant? I mean, seriously, she's basically like almost blackmailing Jimmy. It's like, hey, use your personal connections to get this thing for me, which, as his boss, I'm pretty sure what she's doing there is monstrously illegal, and if not, horribly unethical. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that she's like a owner of a rich media thing, who has doubtlessly has an army of lawyers that she can hide behind, Jimmy would have an absolutely awesome grounds for a lawsuit there. Even better if she actually were to fire him for that. I mean, again, why the hell does anybody want to work for this woman? I mean, damn, we live in this day and age where, healthcare isn't that hard to afford, especially if you have a job. Okay, but that aside, we definitely did get to see some really nice moments with Jimmy offering Kara some nice encouragement, and later her stepping in there to kind of buck him up when he's having a hard time. And yes, there's obviously some attraction going on as well. We'll see where that goes. So, yeah, getting back to Cat Grant, again, why does anyone want to work for this woman? Also, Cat Grant, in all fairness, she does drop some harsh truths on Kara, which did, I think, need to be said. I mean, she does make a point that like Kara really screwed up very badly. I mean, I'm even watching the episode like, why are you pulling that boat? It would be much easier to push it. And I do like that they acknowledge that, hey, the ship is made of metal, and even metal can only take so much. Now, in all fairness, that's kind of one of the conceits to physics that you see a lot in the comics. If Superman were to actually fly under a boat and try and pick up and carry it, just the distribution of weight would probably cause the boat to snap in half. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to be a structural engineer or an expert in physics or anything, but I know enough about science to say, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what would happen. But in any way, getting back to Cat Grant, like I said, she does have a nice moment there where she drops, some harsh truth on Kara. But, and this is the thing that really bugs me is, okay, she wants this interview with Supergirl, and she's basically threatening to fire Jimmy over it. And she even says, okay, Supergirl is flying around with the S shield on. She and Superman have to have some kind of a connection. Is she his girlfriend, his sister, what? Well, okay, so that Supergirl logically has some kind of a connection to Superman. This is reasonable thinking. You know for a damn fact that Jimmy is Superman's buddy. Why are you going to want to piss off Superman and possibly by extension Supergirl by illegally firing Superman's friend and pressuring him to exploit his relationship with Superman for your personal gain? Now, I don't know about you, but if somebody treats somebody who's like a friend of somebody that I'm close to in a shitty fashion, I'm going to be kind of pissed off at that person who's doing that. Especially if, and in all fairness, Cat Grant doesn't know that, Kara and Jimmy are, at least on cool terms. I mean, really, why in the world are you going to do that? I mean, it's obviously for publicity and whatnot. She makes a big thing about her backstory about how she used to be Perry White's assistant and she had to claw her way up from the gossip column. I mean, we even get Perry White and Lois Lane are name drop, which is cool. I'm a little surprised they got away with name dropping Lois Lane, but in any case. Again, just why in the world are you going to treat Jimmy this badly when you know that that's probably going to get back to Superman? Now, in all fairness, it's not like Superman is going to fly over to National City and like egg Cat Grant's house or something. But still, of all the people in the world to try and kind of have a disfavorable opinion of you, you would think that Superman is probably high on the list of people that you would not want to have that sort of an opinion of you. So yeah, I mean, it just feels so dumb that she would do that. Anyway, let's kind of focus in a little bit more on the positive. Now, I definitely was really impressed by what they did with Alex this episode. Her obvious pride in Kara as her sister was very evident, and she too stepped in and laid some hard truth on Kara. gave her that butt kicking that proved that, like, hey, just having super strength is not going to be enough, especially when you're going up against people who also have powers and have the experience to know what the hell they're doing. You think that kind of would have sunk in on Kara after getting her butt kicked last time around, but sometimes people need stuff spelled out for them. So, um, yeah, that was good stuff. And Alex, she got to take down Helgramite, so that's a win for her. Nothing huge to say about Hank Henshaw except for that oh moment at the end. Well, you know what? That's also unfair. He got to stab Astra with a kryptonite knife. Now that was pretty cool. That was genuinely cool. So some points to Hank Henshaw for that. And the whole, like, what in the world is up with this guy in the glowing red eyes? That definitely has me very intrigued. Now, as for Kara herself, well, we've kind of talked about a lot of the big stuff. I really did like her starting small. I mean, it's kind of even Rocky had a montage kind of thing, if you remember that episode of South Park. But they did that sequence to Pat Benatar's "Hit Me with Your Best Shot." Now, if you guys know anything about me in real life, and I might have even mentioned this before, I love me some Pat Benatar. Pat Benatar is awesome. Okay, she and Joan Jett were just the women back in the 80s, and I love them both dearly. So you're kind of like putting that together with Supergirl. It's just like, oh man, this, like, that was a moment that almost felt like it was made for me. I loved it. I loved it. Yeah. So, train of thought. Long day at work. Very tired. Brain bad. Okay, so this time around, uh, Kara gets into a badass fight with her aunt. Uh, well, okay, badass, maybe a little bit of an exaggeration. Definitely not the best wire work I've ever seen. But hey, again, it's TV. But I just love the fact that the hero and the big bad of the season are laying into each other in episode 2. Man, whatever you want to say about Supergirl, this show is not dicking around, drawing things out, at least in that regard. And that was pretty cool. I mean, Kara's reaction to seeing Astra and momentarily mistaking her for her mother, her obvious dismay at, like, hey, you were my aunt who was really nice and cool to me. Why are you doing this? And even Astra has a moment where she tries to reach out to Kara. It's like, hey, why don't you join me? I mean, I'm not actually going to explain what my agenda is or what it is I'm trying to do, but yeah, you should totally agree to join me. Frickin' hell. Frickin' hell. But in any case, that was definitely some cool stuff there. And this, of course, leads us into our little room of solitude moment with Kara. I gotta say, one thing that I don't like is that the whole thing with Superman's fortress being in the Arctic. And I know I'm being ridiculously picky here. For the era I grew up with in the Superman comics, Superman's Fortress of Solitude was in Antarctica, the South Pole. Now, yes, I know it being in the Arctic is in keeping with, for example, the Superman movies and a bunch of other stuff. So me being annoyed by that is a very silly thing, and I know it, but that's just how I feel. In any case, the Arctic is still better than the time it was actually located in the Andes. That was dumb as hell. But anyhow, Kara gets to go into, let's just keep calling it the room of solitude for the moment, and sees this sort of AI of her mom, and then she just says, like, she just asks for a hug. It's just like, man, that's so perfect. I mean, that's such a human moment. If we'd spent most of our life without our mom or whoever, someone we care about, and then we see something that seems just to be exactly like them, yeah, I mean, of course, isn't that the first thing any of us would want? And she can't have it. She can't have it. And she's still hurting from her own aunt trying to kill her. And Kara goes and Kara goes in and she just like, okay, I can't have a hug. Tell me about my aunt. She goes on the mission. That's some strength, folks. That's some strength. And I love how Astra just had like kryptonite. What the hell's that? That's such a nice twist. Now, granted, in all fairness, Kara only just found out about that last episode, and Astra is monstrously freaked out by the existence of kryptonite. Which, if you actually stop and think about it, okay, the DEO took down Kara last episode, no problem. So now it feels like a much more even fight. Then again, and just going by this episode, it looks like a lot of those prisoners are also Kryptonians. Not all of them. I mean, Vartax last episode had the funny bumps. It's flat out stated that Helgramite is from a planet that evolved in a chlorine atmosphere. But let's just kind of assume that most of the people in that prison probably were Kryptonians. So that's probably going to be a pretty significant factor. And there's, of course, well, what are they going to eventually do with these guys? Well, they've got a prison and they've got the Phantom Zone, so I think we can kind of figure that one out. But anyway, I think I've rambled on long enough. All in all, as I said, see episode 2 of Supergirl, pretty solid stuff. Definitely able to see that the show is improving, and I think it's just going to keep getting better. So, with that said, guys, we're going to call it here. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Who's Your Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.